Okay, so now that we've covered the theoretical part of GuardDuty, let's do something much more interesting and let's jump into the console and see how really GuardDuty works in reality. So I've already logged in into my account and I'm going to be navigating to the GuardDuty service. And there's something really important that you should understand regarding GuardDuty. GuardDuty is a regional service. So in this case, I'm in North Virginia, and all the activities that we are going to be doing regarding GuardDuty are going to be scoped to North Virginia only. If you want to do the same thing for GuardDuty in other regions, you should navigate to the other regions and repeat the same steps, okay? And that's really something to take into account when you're implementing GuardDuty in an organization that is supporting different regions. In this case, the first thing we need to do is to activate GuardDuty. We have a free trial for 30 days, and we can either click on Get Started and do it through the GUI, or also we could open the Cloud Shell and write the commands to activate GuardDuty. In this case, what I'm going to be doing is clicking on Get Started. Okay, here is going to be explaining us that the GuardDuty is going to be create a service link role that requires 13 permissions to read the VPC flow logs, CloudTrail, and so on. And here, in case we have an organization, and this is integrated within AWS organizations in which we have defined, let's say, a security delegated administrator, we could specify the account ID here. In this case, this is a standalone account, so we don't have nothing to fulfill here. Let's click on Enable GuardDuty. And as you can see here, we get the main dashboard. This is indeed a new feature. And we have different options in the left menu. So first of all, we have the summary. In this case, we don't have any findings, so we don't see anything. We have the findings section in here. We can filter by high, medium, or low. It's quite handy if you click here. The filter is already included, but you can add here your own criteria. There are many different fields that you can select in order to be filtering the different findings that are going to be popping up here. You can also suppress findings or create a suppression rule. This is quite handy if you know that a finding is a false positive. You could be creating the suppression rule. Here you have the usage. This is going to be telling you how much money have you spent. In my case, it's $0 for the moment, and it's even breaking that down by data source. Okay, so my free trial is going to be ending in November 21, so I have 30 days remaining in my case. You have a section for the malware scans. This is a relatively new feature, as we were explaining before in a previous lesson. And then you have the different protection plans. So here you can decide if you want to enable or disable selectively the different features within GuardDuty to monitor, for example, S3, to monitor Kubernetes clusters. In Kubernetes clusters, we have the kube-API monitoring, and we also have the runtime monitoring, so the nodes itself. For this, you are required to deploy an agent, as we were explaining before. Malware protection as well. As you can see here, as I was saying, you can trigger an on-demand malware scan. The only thing you need to do is to get the ARN of the EC2 instance you want to scan, and you would click on Start Scan. This is not included in the free trial plan. So if you're going to be using this, understand that you will be charged some money for this. We have the database protection for RDS, and finally, the Lambda function protection. So here in accounts, in case you would have a security delegated account that is going to be managing all the different GuardDuty instances or detectors in the different accounts, you would be able here to either invite, so add accounts by invitation, or directly whenever an account is created, is going to be automatically joining the organization and would appear here. And you would have a nice summary of the different accounts that are managed by this delegated administrator account and the status of the different the protection plans and the different features. We also have the settings. So in this case, whenever we are clicking on enable GuardDuty under the hood, this is creating what is called a detector, and we have the detector ID. We can include tagging if we want. We have here a summary of the service link role permissions that GuardDuty needs to be able to work properly. As you can see here, there is a tab for the standard GuardDuty, and if we want to enable malware protection, we need to enable some other, or to have the capability to perform some actions related to EC2. Okay. As I was saying, the delegated administrator, you have also the possibility to export the findings to an S3 bucket. In my case, I'm not going to be creating this. And you can also either suspend GuardDuty or disable it. If you suspend it, well, GuardDuty will no longer monitor anything in your environment. If you disable it, it's going to be basically removing all the findings and all the existing configurations you have in your account. So this is a nice feature in order to ensure that GuardDuty well, is working correctly, or you understand the kind of findings that you're going to be receiving. You can click here on Generate Sample Findings. So when we click Generate Sample Findings and we go to Findings, you will see here many findings, 164, with different severities and different finding types that are going to be serving as a reference in case you want to understand how would it look like if a real finding would be triggered, for example, in this case, in an S3 bucket. In this case, the category would be the pen test, an S3 bucket, and here's telling us that it has a medium severity, and well, in this case, the S3 bucket has been accessed from a remote host IP address that is potentially running part of security Linux penetration security testing tool. Okay, so I recommend you to have a look at all the different findings because you can better understand how it works. And finally, we have here the lists. This is quite handy. Imagine that we have an EC2 instance that is generating some false positives because we know that the IP address that the EC2 instance is contacting is a valid one, but GuardDuty is flagging that as malicious. We can add a list of IP addresses that are considered to be trusted. So GuardDuty is going to be somehow bypassing its own mechanism, so it's going to be ignoring any traffic related to those IP addresses. And we can also include a list of threat IP lists. So in case you have any kind of IP intel or threat intel in general, and there's a provider that is giving you a list of IP addresses, you can leverage this to ensure that GuardDuty is going to be flagging those IP addresses as malicious, or is going to be generating a finding related to those IP addresses. Let's do an example of this. I have an S3 bucket, and within that S3 bucket, we are going to be uploading a file. In this case, let me navigate to the desktop here, and then I have this file that I have been creating with several IP addresses that I'm going to be uploading to this bucket. Okay, so now that we have uploaded the malicious IP list, let's click on it, let's get the S3 URI, and let's go back to GuardDuty. Let's go to Settings, Lists, and then add a thread IP list. We are going to be calling this malicious IPs. The location is going to be the location of the bucket. You could also use the URL. In my case, I'm going to be using the URI. And here you have different formats. So as you can see, FireEye, Alinvolt, and other providers are giving you that threat intel. So if you have any kind of contract with them, you can leverage that. But in my case, it's simply a list of IP addresses, a plain text file that I'm going to be using. Click on I agree, then add list. And when we add the list, as you can see, at the very beginning is inactive. So we have to click on Actions, Activate, and then now if you see here, green tick is that it has been correctly activated. So in this case, whenever in the VPC flow logs we see any of these IP addresses, GuardDuty is going to be generating a finding for that. That's it for this lesson. See you in the next one.